You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Let's move on, Jihan, and talk about England and talk about their chances in this Ashes series. Talk about their squad, key players, who's going to make a difference in this series. But first of all, let's recap England's squad for this Ashes series, the squad that they've selected. So Stokes, Brooke, Crawley, Duckett, Pope, Root, Smith, Bethel, Cass, Jacks, Archer, Atkinson, Potts, Bashir, Tongue, and last but not least, Mark Wood. I don't think anyone was surprised by the selections for England. Maybe some people were surprised at the selection of maybe Will Jacks, potentially. I think people questioned about him in terms of his selection. But apart from that, it's pretty much what people expected, really, that England would have selected for this Ashes series. And can England win for their first series in Australia since 2010-11? Well, it's probably their best chance to do it with Ben Stokes and Bazball and Brendan McCullum and the new brand of cricket they've been doing. Best chance in years, but it does come down to if England can win key moments and if their batters can hold firm. Can their bowlers get 20 wickets? And that's been the problem for England for some time in Australia in terms of that. But they've got Archer and Wood to inject that pace in terms of the pace department there. They do have limited experience of players who've played in Australia before. The only ones who've played in Australia previously are Stokes, Root, Pope, and Mark Wood. And that's about it. And Zach Crawley. The rest of them haven't played in Australia before in terms of Test cricket. They have played international cricket in Australia, of course, ODIs and T20s, but they haven't played a Test series for the first time until now. So they do have some inexperience there when it comes to Australian conditions. Obviously, some concerns with Mark Wood in terms of his hamstring complaint. That's not good going into the first Test. Obviously, Wood and Archer are the big weapons for England in terms of the pace department. And if one of them goes down, that's not good. And Mark Wood has got a question mark over his availability for the first Test, but also maybe for the series. We don't know as we record this preview. They've got a good chance, England, but it's whether or not Bazball can, hold up to the pressure that Australia will bring. And especially in these conditions where we've seen batting in Australia not as it used to be, Jihan, as we've discussed. Pitches are no longer flat. Pitches have a bit of something in them now. We've seen that over the last couple of years, or last few years in Australia. Kookaburra ball's different. It doesn't go soft easily. It stays hard for longer, pronounced seam, more lacquer on the ball. So it is definitely going to be a challenge for England there. So, Jihan, your thoughts on England's squad? Anything that surprised you, or you expected the squad that was named to be selected? So your thoughts on England's squad?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much as I expected. I suppose they're not really putting too much confidence in like the spinners making a huge difference to the series, I think. So I think someone like Will Jacks is picked more for his all-round abilities. And then you've got Shoaib Bashir, the off-spinner, who, he's been average so far. I don't know if they have any better spinners. I thought that Jack Leach would be an option, but as a left arm spinner. But they've gone for Shoaib Bashir. But even then, I'm not even sure that he's going to play. I mean, they're probably going to go with Will Jacks to mainly to boost that batting. In terms of the fast bowlers, they've gone for mostly pace. So Jofra Archer, Mark Wood, Josh Tongue, Gus Atkinson probably isn't quite as quick as those guys, but he's up there. Matthew Potts he's kind of like your average fast medium English seamer, a little bit like, I don't know, someone like a Darren Goff kind of thing, not like extreme pace, but not slow either. Bryden Coss, I think he's a really good bowler. I think he's someone that could challenge the Australian batting. But he's also known to spray it a little bit, so he can be a little bit hit or miss. From the batting side of things, it's pretty much what I expected. I think guys like Zach Crawley, Ben Duckett, if the wicket, when you think about it, a lot of these guys are what I would consider flat track bullies.
Yes.
So if the wicket's flat, no bounce, no seam, guys like Zach Crawley, Ben Duckett will just hit through the line, smash it over. But Zach Crawley hit through the line. Ben Duckett, a lot of back foot play because it's quite a short guy. Harry Brook, sort of, he seems to be a bit of a flat track bosher as well. I think Joe Root's going to be key. Where he struggled in previous series is being able to get past 50. He just seems to be the kind of player that he can look comfortable for a bit, but a good ball's always going to get him out, particularly in Australia. I remember a game, I think it was at the MCG last year, where Australia was England were losing wickets from first session. And then the ball got soft and it looked a lot easier for batting. And they were knocking it around a little bit. And I kind of thought, okay, Australia are going to have to bowl well to get these next few breakthroughs. And then he just sort of like flirted with this wide ball outside off stump from Mitchell Starc and edged behind. And I was sort of like, well, that came out of nowhere, sort of thing. So that's the kind of thing he's going to have to avoid. And he does have that tendency to sort of try and nudge the ball down to third man, and with the extra bouncer, that's something he's going to have to be wary of, and that's got him out here in the past. Ollie, and then you've got this other question about whether Ollie Pope bats at 3 or whether it's going to be Jacob Bethel. I think Jacob Bethel is definitely a talent, but I think, in my opinion, he's a bit overrated. I think he's more of a white ball striker. I don't think he's developed that technique for Test cricket quite yet. He may do, but I don't think he's there right now. Brian Lara said that he's one of the best left-handers he's seen since he was playing. I think a lot of that is biased because he grew up in Barbados. So I don't think he's going to play. I think Ollie Pope will play. And then everyone seems to be a little bit worried about Harry Brook, but I just think Harry Brook's got a lot of technical flaws. Or he doesn't seem technically solid. He's more of like a player that has a lot of attacking shots. But if he had to defend against a good bowler with a bit of movement for like a few overs, I think he's going to get out if he really challenges defence. So, and then also Ben Stokes, he's the kind of guy that will, he'll get himself in. He'll take a good 50, 60 balls to get himself in, and then you know what he can do after that. But with him, I think you need to sort of try and get him out early. Jamie Smith. Jamie Smith is interesting. I watched them a little bit in the series against India, and he's the kind of guy he plays a lot of all his batting is attacking shots, a lot of drives, cut shots, pull shots. He reminds me of he's a kind of like a very Australian player in that sort of way, and he has grown up. He plays his cricket at the Oval, which is a flat batting track with a bit of bounce, so that's actually not surprising. But he's also someone who's a compulsive hooker, so I think he's someone that you can attack. You can target with a short ball. He might get it away, but there's always someone that you can the Australian bowlers can challenge when it comes to the short ball. He also seems a little bit, in terms of his defence, he's a very good driver. He's very good with the attacking shots, but I'm not sure if his defence is particularly secure. So that's something that they can target as well. Just that, the sort of Hazelwood length outside off stump. But yeah, I mean, I think looking at the squad, pretty much what I expected. I think for me, the question for me is whether the England fast bowlers are going to be able to put in a performance across 5 Test matches without breaking down over the course of 5 Tests. And that's been a particular issue for Jofra. I mean, Jofra Archer has barely played any Test matches in the last 5 years. Mark Wood hasn't played for 6 months or something. Gus Atkinson is a guy that when he's played too much, he starts bowling 80 miles an hour as opposed to 85, 86, 88 miles an hour kind of thing. Like, there's a visible difference there. I think Josh Tongue sort of reminds me a little bit of a young Harmison. He's got pace, but he can be erratic.
Yeah.
So I think he's a guy that Australia can target if he gets it wrong. If he's not bowling accurate, if he's not able to hit 11. I think England's most dangerous bowler is Bryden Carse. If he's another one that can leak runs, but if he gets it right, he's consistent. And
he's sort of the workhorse, really. He bowls a lot of overs, I've noticed when I've seen him.
Well, this is the thing. He's another guy that's less injury prone compared to the other bowlers. So if he goes well, he'll be there for 5 Test matches. Yeah, so it's an interesting squad. I mean, I wouldn't have. There's no surprises in there for me. It's pretty much what if I was an England selector, that's who I would have picked. I think maybe I may have picked Jack Leach ahead of Will Jacks, possibly, but the rest of the squad is pretty much who I would have picked.
Yeah, I think many people would agree with that. Not many surprises there, but it's whether or not Bazball will finally work, whether or not Bazball will finally end up in this series, Jihan. I know we did an episode early in the year when we talked about Australian cricket, and we talked about the Ashes a little bit at that chat that we did at the time, whether or not Bazball will work in Australia. So it was sort of a project that when Stokes and McCullum came in, it was a bit of a project to get England cricket back on track. In those early 2020s, when they came together, Stokes and McCullum, they won a few series here and there, but nothing major. And they've provided some entertainment at times, but also made a lot of people frustrated in terms of being in winning positions and then throwing it away. The prime example of that was the last Test match against India. They should have won that Test match, but they didn't in that run chase. So it's an interesting one. Whether or not Bazball will cease after the end of this Ashes series. I thought the last series 2 years ago in England was sort of Bazball's sort of moment, really, Jihan, I thought. And then whatever happened there would be it. But I feel like that Bazball has sort of worked towards this as well in terms of how England will go in Australia and what happens if they lose or win. Will it continue or will it cease? But if they don't win, probably those questions will have to be asked. But I don't think Stokes and McCullum were going to get sacked anyway, unlike their predecessors on previous tours like Joe Root and Chris Silverwood the last time they were here 4 years ago. They both got the boot, so to speak.
What? So you don't think they'll get sacked if they lose 4-0 or 5-0?
No, I don't think they will. I think.
Okay.
I
think they will.
Of course, you'll say that, Jihan. I don't think they will. It's whether or not Bazball will probably cease to be a thing. Really,
yeah.
That's the question. Whether or not they continue on with this experiment or continue on with this method, because it's sort of working towards this crescendo. It's pretty much how it will go in Australia. But I got a feeling if they don't do well in this series, which is a possibility, we can't rule it out, given their past history. Questions will have to be asked. But I think Ben Stokes, he's already got a new contract for England for the next 2 years anyway. So he wants to play on for the next 2 years, regardless of the result in this series. And obviously, Brendan McCullum's got 2 years left on his contract, I think, as coach. So I don't think they're going to go anywhere anytime soon. But questions will be asked, as they always asked when England don't do well in Australia. So I think everyone's talking about that. What are your thoughts on that, Jihan, in terms of Bazball? Do you think it's probably going to end after this series, or do you think, it will continue, but maybe in a different approach? So your thoughts on Bazball's sort of lifespan, really, and whether or not it will continue or cease after this Ashes series, irrespective of England's result.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I was thinking about this the other day, and I think if they lose really badly, like 4-0, 5-0, something like that, they are going to have to change the way they look at the way they play and look at Test cricket. I think it's interesting that you say that McCollum's contract's been extended for 2 years.
I think it has. I think he's got another couple of years left to run, I think.
Yeah, and I think I think if they lose really badly, I personally think Ben Stokes should be sacked as captain. And then they probably need to rebuild from there. Whether it's going to, I don't think it's going to work in Australia. I was thinking about this. I think the only way it could possibly work is if the wickets get really flat, and then maybe one of the Australian bowlers go down with an injury or something, and then they really take the attack to the bowling.
Yes, but we're probably not going to see that. It's probably not going to be as extreme as it was in that 2017-18 test in Melbourne. Remember when Cook got 200 and it was an absolute road?
Yeah, well, this is a thing. It's going to be very difficult to do that, I think, in the first 2 test matches in Perth and Brisbane. If anything, that may happen after that. But Perth and Brisbane tend to get flat from days 2, 3, and 4, like after the first day, sort of thing. So, I think there's gonna be an expiry date to Bazball. They're going to realise that you just can't play Test.
I think we're starting to get towards that anyway, because really, you think about it, Ben Stokes is Bazball. Yeah. And when he hasn't played, they sort of lost their way, especially in that last test against India where they lost. They should have won because Brook and Root scored hundreds in that run chase, and India were up against it. But then they got out, and then they just collapsed. So it's sort of getting towards that sort of span, really. And they haven't really won anything major. They haven't won a series against, they didn't win against India recently. They didn't win against India in India, which is hard to do. They haven't won the Ashes. They drew the last series. So it really hinges on what they do in this Ashes series. But I think we're starting to get towards that lifespan. And obviously Ben Stokes is nearly towards the end of his career. He's sort of been the pioneer in all this. So
I think one thing that they've done well, and they've sort of worked out, if we go to even if we're playing at home or overseas, if you give us a pitch that's going to be so ridiculously flat that we may as well be paying a T10 game on it, sort of thing, we're going to pay a T10 on it for the whole day, and just use scoreboard pressure once the pitch gets a bit old to win the game,
like they did in Pakistan a couple of years ago when they won that series.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what they did in Pakistan.
They didn't do that this time around because Pakistan changed the pitches. But a few years ago, they did that, and that worked pretty well.
When they
Where Australia struggled when they toured in 2022, if you remember that series with Australia and Pakistan. Australia would like to win that last test.
Those are the kind of pitches that Australia could have done that on too, but they didn't have that mindset.
Yeah.
back in 2022. But yeah, they couldn't. The last tour Pakistan, England couldn't have done that because it was sort of like, yeah, you're not going to be playing baseball on these raging turners. I think that's a bit of a shame in the way that Pakistan are doing things because they naturally have great fast bowlers. I found a little bit ironic, in fact, when they won that Test series against England on dust balls with a couple of spinners, where England didn't know what to do, and then they go to Australia in the one-day series and win that series with their fast bowlers. You remember that?
Yes, yeah.
I sort of found a little bit of irony in that. I thought, well, this is what you should be doing in the tests. You need fast bowlers to win tests, not one-dayers. But anyway, they did it. But yeah, so I think it's one of those things, isn't it? It's sort of when you look at England's white ball cricket and their one-day side. Their one-day side is terrible now, right? They're really not.
Oh yeah, they had a bit of a terrible series in New Zealand recently. God, their top order were knocked over.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where, like, that phase of we've got this great theory of how to play cricket, with basically all-out slogging is, whenever they realise they're crap, they're just like, oh, let's just do all-out slogging for a while. They did that in one-day cricket, managed to win a World Cup by,
But that was different with Morgan. He was a different leader to Stokes.
Was it that different, though? Like, it's pretty much
not really, but I suppose, with Morgan and the one-day team they had that won the World Cup, they just had different players, I suppose, like Jason Roy, Bairstow, Plunkett, with their bowling and others, compared to the Test side.
Yeah, but I think it's the same kind of strategy, tactics. When they realize
it's the same method, but different approach in different ways here on there.
Well, it's a different format, so you sort of have to adapt it to the other format. But I think for me, there comes an expiry date with that. Like, you just can't keep doing that thinking you're going to win, because that's the thing about Test cricket, right? You have to be a quality side with quality players that can play across all conditions, right? You can't just say, wait till it's flat and smash it everywhere and use scoreboard pressure to win, and that's going to work everywhere, because it's not going to work everywhere. You go overseas and you go to India and they've got slow wickets that turn a bit, and then you're like, oh, we got smashed 4-1, but we still played baseball, so it's a moral victory.
Yes.
So and even they couldn't even win at home with that method. So they drew with India at home. So yeah, I don't know. Like, these kind of phases, they may last for a few years, but they gradually die out. They gradually die out because it's not sustainable. You can't sustain these guys that are just going to play like that all the time and keep being successful.
Yes. If Zach Crawley was playing for someone else, for example, he would have been dropped ages ago.
Yeah.
Then what he is now with England. So
exactly right. Yeah. So.
Yeah. It's sort of like with Sam Constance, really. The way he's been playing of late, you can't really sustain that for a long period of time and have a long career. So you have to change and adapt as the game adapts and changes, and Test cricket has done that. So, yeah, things have a lifespan, and we're probably reaching towards the end with that with baseball, really.
Well, the thing is, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
I mean, you long form, first class long form cricket, Test cricket has always been the same. Like, you do your best to score as many.
Yes, it's take your time. No need to rush. Every time I watch England, it's like you're watching fast forward. It makes my head spin. You just take it easy, relax. It's like when you're doing an exam in school and you're the first one to finish than everyone else. And the teacher says you still got like an hour to go. You want to make sure you want to check your paper to make sure you got everything correct and right. England just turn it in and say, we're already done. Let's go and play outside or something, So
well, the thing is, that method is only going to work if your bowlers can keep up with the pace of the batting, meaning that they take wickets regularly. But if
and also it's a bit of a sorry to cut you off there, Gian. It's also a bit of a disadvantage for their bowlers. They don't have enough rest. They score quickly, and they don't have enough rest, and they're back out there again. So that's what's going to happen in this Ashes series as well. And with Archer and Wood injury prone, do you really want them to be bowling back-to-back days? No, really. So this fast-forward cricket, yes, it's entertaining, it's great, but sometimes you just got to know when to take your foot off the accelerator and take your time a bit. And I think that's what they're going to fight against with their natural urges in this Ashes series. Can they fight? That will be the question.
This is the thing, and the point I was trying to make earlier was if the bowlers have to keep up with the pace of the game that the batsmen are creating and scoring that quickly and losing wickets at that pace. So, meaning, if England score 400 in 70 overs, 450, let's say, in 70 overs, and they're like, yes, we're on top of the game, we're scoring at 6 runs an over, we're really on top of the bowling. On top of the other team, and then the other team comes and scores 650 at a slightly lower run rate, but they're like, we're not taking as many risks, so we're not going to get out. Then that defeats and the thing is, the test match is 5 days, so there's plenty of time for them to get bowled out again. So that's right. Kind of like they're giving themselves they're giving the opposition more time to bowl them out. So
I'm all for positive cricket, of course.
Yeah.
But sometimes you've got to know when to attack and defend and when it's the right time. And sometimes they have got themselves into a bit of a pickle by doing that.
Well, I mean, they're basically saying, let's play T20 cricket and Test cricket.
Yeah,
right.
Basically.
And you can do that when the wicket's flat and the ball's not doing anything and there's no bounce or whatever.
Yeah,
but it's almost sort of like it's almost a way of like bullying the opposition. Like, the wicket's not doing anything for the bowlers, so we're just going to smash you everywhere, kind of thing. And then try and use scoreboard pressure to get onto the opposition. But that's not really going to work against a quality team with good bowling.
And this Australian attack, obviously, as we saw last summer, they didn't really give the Indian batters much, really.
Well, the Australian attack, and also the help you can get in pitches as well.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like smashing the ball around on the edge.
And I don't think in that summer, last summer, I don't think we had high scores. India scored, what did they score? 500 odd in Perth.
Yeah.
I think, and then Australia scored 400, I think, in Brisbane, and then India scored a 300, but then the rest was like sub 200s, and especially with India, they got bowled out under 100 a handful of times, like 150 and below, I think. So
yes,
that could be the same again in this Ashes series, potentially. And I won't be surprised if England do collapse in a big heap, because they tend to do by playing baseball. So it will be interesting to see how they approach it. But you would think... sorry, Gian, go on.
No, I was going to say, just random moment that sticks in my mind from last year's series was Adelaide Test match when the lights came on. Do you remember when Mitchell Starc?
Yes.
I was in a sports bar in Perth at the time, and there was quite a few people watching that, and like everyone was like clapping. It just got really loud after that. Like our time, it would have been, I don't know, 8 o'clock, something like that, 7 o'clock maybe. But yeah, I got excited when I saw it because it was a perfect ball. It swung in. I think he bowled Ollie Pope with a ball like that at Lords in the last Ashes series as well.
He did, yeah.
Be nice to see something like that this series.
Well, probably in the day-night test in Brisbane this series, rather than Adelaide. But you would think probably, Joe Root probably will be the biggest key for England with the bat, because of his record, and he's not far away from Sachin Tendulkar. Obviously, this is the one blemish on his illustrious career, not scoring 100 in Australia. In the last series, he scored 89. So I think that's his highest score in Australia. So
where was he, 89?
That was in the last series that England were here in 21-22. His top score was 89. He scored 322 runs at an average of 32 and 5 tests in 10 innings, 3 50s and a couple of ducks.
I think with Joe Root, you just have to get him out when the ball's new, pretty much.
Like anyone else, he's susceptible. So
yeah, exactly. Like if he gets himself in, there's a chance for him to get 100. But I mean, I think what with him, in particular, the last couple of series, even once he's got himself in, he's just randomly got out at times. Like that time I mentioned in Melbourne. So I don't know if he's going to do that this time, but from the Australian bowling perspective, you just got to keep the pressure on and know that there's a chance to get this guy out. Even though he's the second highest run scorer in Test cricket of all time. So,
and even if he doesn't score 100 in Australia, I don't think that defines him as a player, to be honest. There have been many greats who haven't scored hundreds in particular countries, like Ricky Ponting, for example. I don't think he scored 100 in India.
He did.
He was still a great player.
He did score 100 in India.
Sorry, yes. Did he score 100 or he didn't?
He scored 1, I think, in 2010, I think it was.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the match that they lost like ridiculously when they lost by 1 wicket with the 10th wicket.
Oh, that's right. Yes, Laxman was batting at the end, wasn't he? Yes,
he got 100 in that game. But when he got that 100, he looked so like you could tell it meant so much to him because it was his first 100 in India.
Yeah, as I was trying to say. Obviously, my memory was rejogged there from UGN. Of course, he did. Yes, but it doesn't really define you if you don't score 100 in a particular country. So you'll still be a great player if he doesn't score big runs in this series. But you would think he'll score some runs and make a contribution here and there. Whether or not he can score that 100 remains to be seen. And then obviously you've got Ben Stokes, who will be crucial with both bat and ball. I think more so with the bowling side. We talk about Archer, and obviously Mark Wood's got a question mark with that injury, but I think Ben Stokes is the key really with his bowling because he comes on and bowls those spells and he picks up key wickets here and there. It's whether or not he can control that stubbornness, which I think he has a bit there, in terms of reining it back, in terms of not overdoing it, in terms of injuries we've seen him.
Do you mean over bowling himself?
Yeah, pretty much. And, realizing when the right time is to stop rather than being stubborn and just saying, I'll just keep going until I break down. And that's got him into trouble. So, but he will be the key as well as the other bowlers to try and back him up. So that will be the question mark there. But we know what he's going to do anyway. Then you got Brook and Smith and Duckett and Crawley will do their thing. Pope, he's a bit hit or miss, isn't he? And then if Jacob Bethel comes in and plays a role, he's got a bit of talent, but he'll be tested. Hasn't played in Australia before. And then you've got Will Jacks, who's played a bit of Test cricket, but will be tested if he gets an opportunity. So plenty of questions for England to answer, and whether or not they can answer them in this series remains to be seen. But I remember.
I think I remember last time Ollie Pope seemed to have this huge issue against Nathan Lyon, which I couldn't understand at all. He just had no idea against him. Even like when the ball wasn't turning and like it would be like 20 overs in, he had no idea how to play him. So yeah, if he plays, then that's going to be a match-up for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think they'll be a bit more competitive this time, England. I think everyone will agree with that. I think they're definitely better than they were 4 years ago. Let's put it that way. And I think since 2010-11 for the first time, they are going to be competitive. It's just whether or not they can win those key moments and whether or not the batting can hold up and the bowling can stay together for 5 tests. Those are the question marks and the questions that need to be answered. answered
much. Yeah.
From an England perspective. So that's pretty much England, Jihan, and given our thoughts about how they'll go about this Ashes series. And I hope everyone listening and watching got a lot out of it when me and Jihan were discussing England and their chances in this Ashes series. Hi everyone, if you're watching or listening to this episode of the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast on our YouTube channel, let us know in the comments your thoughts on how England will go in the 2025-2026 Ashes series.